Hey everyone. So I tried to record this yesterday and I had plenty of video but no sound. So I think I may have accidentally hit the mute button on my mic. So I'll try again. This is a position that I have. It's about 0.5% position. I would buy more if it went down. It's a really interesting idea I came across called Easterly Government Properties. The ticker symbol is DEA, and I'll mention why I think it's interesting. First of all, this is a REIT, real estate investment trusts, and they're kind of different than regular corporations because they have pass-through tax treatment. So the government gives them a break. They don't have to pay income tax on their earnings, but the sort of deal with the devil that they have is that they have to pass through 90% of their earnings as dividends to their shareholders. So sometimes that provides a good dividend income, but kind of hampers their ability to grow because if you're sending out 90% of your earnings in dividends, that leaves you not a lot to reinvest back in the business. And so usually you have to finance with debt, and that makes it less attractive to some investors. Also, real estate, if you invest in real estate personally, you would know that there's a lot of tax advantages to owning real estate. So if I owned a commercial office building or a warehouse, I would get to use a certain amount of depreciation every year. So even if the building is getting more valuable in terms of rents and everything like that, I'm allowed to deduct depreciation and make it look like I'm earning less than I am. And that's why whenever you look at a REIT, you'll notice the PE looks ridiculously high, like a tech company. But it's because of the weird tax treatment. So you shouldn't look at the PE ratio. So what should you look at? You should look at something called FFO or AFFO, and that's funds from operation or adjusted funds from operations, which is FFO with some other things added back in. So I didn't used to invest in REITs at all, but I keep an eye out for them sometimes. The first one I invested in was probably about 10 years ago. I saw Michael Burry had bought a REIT called NXRT, and I didn't know much about REITs, and I decided to get up to speed on it. And I bought this book, which is probably the best one that you can get to learn about REITs. I looked at a few, and I thought this was the best one. It's like 450 pages, and it'll tell you everything you need to know, the tax treatment, different kinds of REITs, Class A office property, REITs that have warehouses, REITs that are rent only to doctors, REITs, mortgage REITs, any other kind, and also give you some good metrics to value them, in terms of FFO or AFFO that you should expect. And this one is trading at a FFO of about 10 or 11, which is very cheap. So I would expect about twice that, which is why you are getting a really nice dividend here of 9.5%. So normally on this you'd expect like a 4 or 5% dividend, and the AFFO of like 18 to 20. But since this is 10 or 11, uh, the price is very cheap, and this makes this lower. So what do they do? It's a very special REIT that rents properties to mostly the federal government, and about 10 to 15% of their business is state and local governments, and they're trying to grow that. So why is it beaten up so much? Well, as you can see, the past 4 years, people have been working from home, so there's this narrative that offices are going to go empty, and a lot of the commercial REITs that have offices have been beaten up a lot, along with this one, uh, thinking that no one will ever return to the office. And that's simply not true, and especially for this one. So there's only one other REIT like this, and the other one is not as good. It's called Postal something, and it is a REIT like this, but they only own post offices. So the management isn't as good in the postal REIT, and they've had trouble renewing leases with the post office. And as you know, with the invention of the fax machine and email and everything like that, you have less and less need for the Postal Service every year, but the government is still around and is not going anywhere. So I'll go over why this is a good thing and sort of the why it's gotten beaten up. So, besides the work from office, the current administration has said that they want to take a lot of the agencies that are based in DC and move them around the country to red states, presumably. And that's what they did the first 4 years with one agency. They moved from DC to Kansas. I forget which one it was, but some uh, agency that was moved. But this one, I don't think there's as much danger of that. And I think if uh, it had been almost all federal tenants, and now they're growing into state government buildings, that's a good sign because in New York, for instance, the capital is not New York City, it's Albany. And if you own stuff in Albany and you rent it to the New York State government, the federal government says they want to move stuff from DC to all over the country. But if you're in Albany and you want to move a government office buildings, there's not a lot of choices in Albany. And if you are in Illinois, the capital's not Chicago, it's Springfield. And there's not a lot of good office space that you can rent in Springfield. And if you're a government agency or uh, yeah, something like that, state hospital, you can't really move that. It's going to stay where it is. So I think as far as the growth trajectory goes, the moving into uh, state government is not only safer, but less likely to be disrupted by moving around. And the portfolio. Okay, so 100 properties. Um, Average age of the properties is 15 and a half years, 97% lease. And this is interesting. So the uh, remaining term on average is 10 years. So if you are worried that the current administration is going to move some agencies from DC to another part of the country, I think you can do that if you're in properties that are owned by the federal government. So, for instance, the FTC building is owned by the federal government. And a lot of these old buildings that were built in the 60s or 40s, you would look at them and think that the US government hired the same architects that the Soviet bloc did. They're very ugly, very blocky, and they're in nice parts of DC and they're owned by the federal government. And if they move those, no problem. But if you are leasing office space from someone like Easterly and you have a 10-year lease and the government decides to move out, the government still owes them the money. So if they want to wait till the end of the 10 years and they'll be it won't be this presidency, it won't be the next presidency, it'll be two presidents from now. If you think that's a risk, okay. But I think that risk is very overblown. And at 11 times FFO, I think this is really cheap. And as I said, getting into state and local government real estate, I think is a plus. The one part which I think that sort of rings true, or that threat is they did recently buy some property in Colorado. Uh, which one is Colorado? Is this Colorado? This might be Colorado. Maybe here or maybe here. Who knows? One of those is Colorado. Uh, they bought two properties, and one is leased to the Air Force, and one is leased to Space Force. And there has been some talk that uh, Trump, who hates the blue states, maybe this is Colorado, who knows, wants to take the Space Force headquarters and move it from Colorado down to Alabama. And Alabama is one of these states. Your guess is as good as mine. Maybe this one, where there's more red voters. So he wants to move Space Force from Colorado, where the Air Force is, down to Alabama. I don't know why. I don't care why. But if that happens, there's still plenty of other real estate that they have. And another concern is that if the government gives up their leases on some of this stuff, it might be harder to rent out. For instance, if you have a courthouse, who else are you going to rent a courthouse to? You know, if you have Class A office real estate and somebody else vacates, you can rent that to another law firm, another bank, another accounting firm. But with something like a courthouse or an NIH lab that has those uh, air things that suck the air out from the labs, and or a defense building that has these skiffs, which are secure communication, something something to prevent eavesdropping. Like who would rent that besides the government? And you can get a lot of money for that because it's very specialized and expensive to build out. But if they leave, who are you going to replace it with? But if you look at their breakdown of assets, I don't think that's as big a risk. So again, most of this is federal, and about 10% or 15% is uh, state and local, and they're trying to grow that. So this is going to be less of a risk as time goes on. But if you look at the federal stuff, about a third of it is VA outpatient and the FBI regional headquarters. And I believe that's in Quantico, Virginia, and it's a huge campus, you know, with the shooting ranges and the uh, classrooms and the offices and everything like that. So if you move that, it's not like you can look for a Class A office building somewhere and move it. You know, you would need a huge campus somewhere. So I don't think that's going anywhere. Uh, VA outpatient, you know, veterans hospitals, those aren't going anywhere. If you have a hospital in Kansas that treats uh, patients that are in the former military, and you move that, it's not like they're going to drive to Chicago for treatment. You know, they would have to stay in the area. So there would be no reason to move that. So, you know, with those two things, you're talking about half the portfolio that won't be moved, right? And you know, the one thing that's in danger, I think, is, you know, moving Space Force from I don't remember if it's Denver or Boulder, but they bought a couple of things there, and that's one thing, and they still have a lease there, so it would take years before you lost that money. Some of this other stuff, laboratory, you know, that's, I said, what the concern is, that some of this very specialized stuff, like a laboratory, you know, who else would need a laboratory? So, you know, if you were renting to, let's say, the NIH, National Institutes of Health, and they vacated the laboratory, it's not like Google or a law firm can move in that lab space. You would need to find some biotech company, and there's not as many of those as there are people who want Class A office space. So I think some of the portfolio might be in danger, but, you know, I think the overwhelming portion of it is fine, and you're getting this at about half the price that you normally pay for a good quality REIT like this. And you have the best tenant possible, the federal government, and they're moving into other tenants that are also not likely to move anywhere, which are state and local governments. So I think this is a good bet, not only at this price, which is like 9.5% dividend, but has opportunity to grow. Um, yeah, so let's go down here. Da, da, da. So yeah, traditionally the uh, top three tenants here, the VA, Justice, and DEA, they keep going up about the same as the population growth. So as the U.S. keeps growing, the need for their operations, and in turn the space that they would need from someone like Easterly Government Properties. Blah, blah, blah. Try to say that too many times. That keeps going up, so that'll be fine. Acquisitions. This is the one I said was a concern. Northrop Grumman uh, and Buckley Air Force Base, right? Yeah. So, however, the one for the Air Force, the lease is good till 2029, so that's 4 years from now. And if they wanted to move the Air Force Base, that lease doesn't expire till 2032. So, you know, you've got another 7 years there for them to find another tenant, or for the government to change its mind, I think you're pretty good there. Um, yeah, so that's kind of what I like about this, and if you look at the management, they seem to be more on the ball than their closest competitor, which is the postal REIT, which I think if I had to bet on a long-term tenant, I would prefer to bet on the federal government or the state governments that operate things like VA hospitals than somebody who rents to the post office, and the post office keeps getting their budget cut, and every year there's less and less need for you to use mail. So that's my thoughts on this. And it's not a recommendation to buy or sell. This is just me walking through my process. And I will say that I did notice an interesting video recently about these finance YouTubers who accept money to review corporations. And I'm not one of those. Some of these companies that I review, like Ammo Inc., are very small. And if it's a shitty company, I'll tell you it's a shitty company. And if you want me to review a company that you're involved in and want to send me some money, don't waste your time. I don't do those. I don't care about those. And I'm not willing to uh, sell myself out for money. And, you wouldn't, if you had half a brain, you wouldn't offer it to me anyway, because there's only a few hundred people who subscribe to this channel. So anyway, that's my rant. Do your own research. This is just me walking through my process, and it's not intended for you to uh, rely on this or copy me into anything. I think if you wanted to copy somebody who's a good investor, you can find out what Warren Buffett is buying and buy that. I'm just the guy who uh, is a former government lawyer and likes to do this for fun and makes these videos in his home office. So, yeah, if you want to copy somebody, copy Warren Buffett. Don't copy me. If you want to bribe somebody to make videos to pump your company, go look someplace else. And don't ask me to manage your money for you either. I don't do that either. I do it for myself. The only other person I've ever done that for is my mom. And although she's very happy with me, uh, if I did terrible, she wouldn't tell me. And I don't want to do it for anyone else. So, yeah, don't ask. Anyway, I hope to have some more videos soon. I think I still owe you guys FRPH and Fairfax and Fairfax India, which I own a lot of, are doing really well. So maybe I'll do one of those. And yeah, so plenty of ideas coming up.